Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Experience. I'm so happy to have you join us. And today we have a great treat for you. We have Sarah Lascano, and she is a medical intuitive, and she's also an energy medicine practitioner, and she instructs as well. And so I'm going to give her the floor, and she can talk more about it, and we'll have a cool conversation. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here with you today. And let me just introduce myself real quick. I am an
Sure.
energy medicine practitioner. I help people heal usually physical and emotional symptoms that are keeping them stuck in their life. And it's my passion because I was there before. And I know how hard it is to not have answers. So I was raised in a Western medicine kind of home. My father was a physician, and we have a whole family of medical practitioners, nurses and doctors, and so medicine was really the way that you fixed anything that was wrong with you. And when my first pregnancy came along and my health crashed midway through, there were no answers. I went to doctors and they didn't have answers for me at all. And so I was left feeling kind of hopeless. What in the world am I going to do? And what is my child going to do? Because both of us were feeling pretty crummy. He had colic and belly problems and eczema, and I had hip pain and joint pain and fatigue and all kinds of digestive issues. So these were real problems that were disrupting our sleep and disrupting our life, and no one had answers. So I had to start looking outside the box. And I won't forget that feeling of hopelessness and not knowing where to turn, because in our society, talking about alternative health at least 15 years ago, it wasn't easy to find. It was there, but it wasn't easy to find. So I
Yeah.
didn't know anything in my common awareness. And so I had to start digging.
Mhm. And I think that's a really great term, common awareness. It's like we go with what our consciousness is familiar with. We have like inner templates and inner structure within our mind that, it's like computer programming. It's like if this, then that. We talked about it in my session yesterday, like what's the flow chart? And yeah, if it's not common knowledge, what then? So how did you do it? How did you start opening it up?
Well, as a lot of us know from our struggles, desperation helps us dig deep and gives us the motivation to really get out of our comfort zone. So that's
Yeah.
what it did for me.
Yeah.
I finally, I actually moved, and a chiropractor lived down the street, and she had a recommendation for an integrative doctor. And I went to see
Mm,
that integrative doctor, and he actually gave me a book that talked about adrenal fatigue, what it was, all the things that it threw off in the body, how important the adrenals were. And that book is really what started my awareness that there was something inside of me that needed healing that the doctors who were in my awareness didn't have answers to or didn't even know that it was a problem.
totally. And I come from a medical family too, and it's like a completely different paradigm. And um, so for people who may not be aware and aren't familiar with integrative medicine, how would you put integrative medicine? How would you describe it?
So it's interesting that you asked this, because this is really my mission, I think, going forward, is to try to bridge medical medicine with holistic medicine. So an integrative doctor is one who tries to do that. They try to take care of the physical body through medical means, but they're also aware that there's this other part of healing, the more holistic part, that influences our health. So, holistic healing, of course, means healing that takes into account the full body, not just the physical body, but also the emotions, the thoughts, the diet, stress levels, all those lifestyle factors that impact our health, and even our past trauma, our past, childhood adverse events, and
Yeah.
other things that have influenced us and can affect our physical health. So, an integrative doctor is one who tries to bridge that gap.
I'd imagine. I mean, I've talked to a few integrative practitioners and also functional medicine doctors. I mean, I don't actually know the difference between an integrative physician and a functional medicine person. I know they do muscle testing. There's more kinesthesiology or cannot. I don't know why I'm not
Physiology.
thinking of. Yes, and like there's got to be a consciousness component that they're open to that is not a part of the Western allopathic paradigm, because there's there's a clear delineation. It's like if you talk to a person who's just like straight ahead, I mean, we've probably, many of us have had experiences. I remember my son having a lot of complications that I've talked about a little bit on the show when he was little, and we went to a doctor and I told him, what did I tell him? I told him something like I was giving him colloidal silver for something that was going on within him. And the doctor told me, if you're doing anything that's alternative, don't tell me. And I was like, you don't want me to report to you like all the things that I'm doing, which you would normally sort of expect the doctor to want to know. And basically he made a really clear delineation. That is bullshit. And this is acceptable. And I can't, he even said, he threatened to say, I can't work with you otherwise. And that was my cue to get another doctor anyway. But it's so, it's like the not knowing part. It's sort of like and this is just a perception that I have, but if you're not being trained how to not have answers, then you're not open to really investigating. It's like here are the categories of symptoms that align with this diagnosis, and then anything in between is not acceptable. It's like, oh no, I can't look at that. And that also, I mean, I think about the scientific method, and it's like this idea, the Thomas Kuhn's book, I forget the name of it, the Paradigm book. Most people who've read it, they know what I'm talking about. But the idea that science is meant to be open, like always asking questions, always open-minded. And the idea that over time, science is doing kind of the opposite, that it becomes closed through academic rigor and closed-mindedness, and it's got to be this way or my reputation's on the line. And so that's sort of a long way of saying there's a lot of reasons why it's this way, but it's got to change in order to really address the whole person, like you're saying.
Yeah, and this is where my passion really comes in, because I believe that we can create a partnership with medical professionals. I believe that we can. I think a lot of the time they are not equipped to understand what we are doing. And because of
Absolutely.
liability, they're afraid to embrace it until they deeply understand it, or they see clinically studied, clinically randomly controlled studies that are done to show that it's effective. So there's a lot of fear there. But
Yeah.
if we can show them methods that we can use to heal the body in a completely non invasive way that doesn't compete or affect their physical treatments, and it improves patient outcomes, I think we're onto something. And I think we can get buy in a way, especially if we approach medical professionals that are truly interested in better outcomes and not so hung up on the ego side of being a physician. I think there's a lot we can do.
It's such a great way of saying it. I totally agree. I mean, I've been in experiences. There was a side job that I did a few years ago, working at a health market in Texas, and just supplements and that kind of thing. And the person who ran it was a naturopath, and people would come into the store like so wiped out and helpless, like they just, that desperation that you talk about earlier, that you want to hold on to and remember. um I get it. Like I've seen that in people. And I know, a colleague of mine who experienced Lyme went through very similar things. And I wonder, like on a soul level, and this is just sort of more of an existential, bringing it out a little bit more in scope. Is there a journey that you feel like your soul may have been guiding you on through that tough experience?
100%. 100%. I do not believe any tough experience is without purpose. So it's kind of a foundational belief of mine that we are going through a spiritual journey. That's why we're here. And our hardships, whether they're physical, whether they're emotional, whether they're financial, our hardships are there to help us move forward in some way. So if we can embrace that there's a purpose behind our difficulty, we can move through it with a lot less suffering. It can be a lot easier and more graceful. The problem is when we are in the thick of it, we're not always aware of that spiritual truth. So usually that comes with wisdom on the other side. So that's
So true.
where, yeah, being an energy healer and helping people understand that there's a way out and there's a reason that this is shuffling something in their system. This is helping them learn something or helping them change direction.
I can so relate to that as a practitioner, and just getting to shift the frame of reference for people so that this someday you might see this as a true gift. And people who are in the thick of it are like, you're absolutely nuts.
Yep.
And I kind of think of like what we're going through on a global level with the with COVID and the pandemic. And I put that in quotes just because I feel like the word pandemic is a very highly energizing in a negative way term. And not to say that it's not a thing. I do believe that it's a thing, but it's really interesting to see humanity going through what I personally perceive as guiding down a path of fear and helplessness and hopelessness. And I guess my key hallmark in that awareness or perception is, if we really cared about getting better, we would be talking about mass media would be talking about how to boost the immune system, how to shift our thoughts. I mean, it's out there, it's becoming more pervasive, but it's still not yet so pervasive that that's the dominant point of view. And that to me is a sign that we're still really evolving as a species to move into a place of higher evolution. And I think that's why people like you, people who do the alternative healing practices, who over and over again, you hear, I am here to bring light. I am here to be the change, to demonstrate another way of being, because we've cycled through so many cycles of this, like fear, control, going back into old cycles of history. And it's like, come on people, let's do something so out of the box, so different. And I get that can be scary. I don't know, like I just totally shifted gears, but what do you think of that? What's your interpretation of what's happening?
I agree with you. I really do. I think it's an exercise in spiritual growth. And we have to remember that we are really we're on the forefront here of conscious awakening and people understanding that they're more than their thoughts and their bodies. And as the leaders, we see clearly that this is an exercise in moving energy out of those lower chakras, right? This is our lower energy centers with survival, with fear, with security. And
Our Maslow's pyramid of needs.
yeah, it's stirring everything up so that people can face their fears whether they want to or not, because whether we like it or not, hardship and challenge is the way that we grow. it's a spiritual truth. There are not many people I know that grow in our society without some kind of challenge to their way of living. When we are happy
Comfortable.
and comfortable, we get a little bit stagnant.
Yeah.
We don't push ourselves. So a little bit of challenge, and obviously this is a big challenge, but it's causing people to really face their fears and bring it to the forefront rather than keeping them hidden.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's a, as twisted as this may sound, it's kind of a fun time on a spiritual level. It's such an adventure. It's so uncharted. Um, and I think too, when a person is able to kind of trust and double down on their spiritual point of view and trust that, we're bulletproof, not in the human sense, but our souls are infinite, and they're pure, and whatever goes down here on earth is going to be something that we can draw upon on a soul level. And so what do we want to do? The idea that people choose to live here, I find in my work over and over and over again, the validation of people connecting with their awareness that they came here for a purpose. And like, what if the entire planet trusted and understood that they actually wanted to come here and live this life and have all the complications and have all the drama, and then learn from it, and find a way to find harmony regardless of circumstance? I mean, that would be amazing.
I think it will happen. I do.
Yeah.
I think we're on our journey there. It's just that we're teaching others that that's the truth. And there are many people that don't know that yet.
Yeah. So do you think it'll happen in our lifetime?
No.
Me either.
Everybody knows.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. And that's okay with me. I mean, it's
Yeah.
part of the adventure of life, because even though we're not getting there perhaps in this lifetime, we're still in a direction. We can't go backwards, even though we still play out old themes and patterns. It's like the spiritual spiral. We're just spiraling and moving, and we're making progress. We're growing, because at a certain point you cannot look back. You can only move forward. And these times are really interesting, like the news about that guy getting convicted of the George Floyd murder. He was actually convicted. I think a lot of people were shocked about that. And I think to a lot of people that is a sign of change. And that's really to see humanity optimistic again in all of this darkness would be an amazing thing.
Yeah. And I think we have to remember that there are plenty of us that are awake, are aware of spiritual truth, and the people that are ready to make that jump are coming to us. So we are here to serve the growing number of people that are ready to make that shift. So everyone won't make that shift in our lifetime, but a lot of people will.
Yeah. And I love that. And it's so true. That whole thing of, people coming to you and finding you. And I want people to find you and work with you, because I've had the opportunity to work with you. And it was fabulous for me, because there were things that in my work, I have a lot of tools that I draw upon. I've also had training in energy medicine. But the thing about people working together to help each other to advance, on a soul level, on a human level, and to evolve, um, it was so significant for me, because we as healers often are giving so much, and then to be in a position where I could receive, it just felt very clear that I needed to work with you. And that doesn't hit me very often. And so I'm so grateful, because first of all, it was easy for me. I didn't really have to do anything. I was in a passive state, and you were doing all of the dot connecting, and it was sort of, I was along for the ride, which is different from a hypnotic experience where the client has to do the work. It's like, okay, this is your experience and what are you experiencing? So it's super, I mean, I think it's super complimentary, but I was able to release stuff that I hadn't been able to. Um, and
Yeah.
So, I want to hear about how the experience of what you do kind of comes to you on a soul level. So, you're here, you started to go through your healing journey, and then something happened where you started to become a healer. Tell us about that experience.
Sure. So my son and I had all these health issues. We tried so many different health practitioners. We tried integrative doctors, we tried naturopaths, we tried homeopaths. We just went to all of these places, and we saw little incremental results. We did crazy strict diets, we did tons of supplements, little incremental results until we found energy healing. And within 3 sessions, most of our food sensitivities were gone. And I was
Wow.
so intrigued. It was truly amazing. I was able to stop our food reactions within 5 minutes. It was truly amazing.
Wow.
And I realized I need to know how to do this. So I started taking some classes and started healing myself and my family, and saw amazing results from when we had been stuck. We had been stuck for so long. And then, I was so excited about it that I started telling my friends about it, and they wanted to know more. So I started doing little mini sessions for friends. And one day I went to another healing session, and it just hit me as perfect for me, the tool that was being used, the experience, and I realized this is what I need to do. This is it. So
Wow.
I
It just
started,
dropped
yeah,
in.
just dropped in over a period of time, but it really did. And there's just really been no looking back. People come to me. I mean, you must know that as a healer. You go to the grocery store and someone starts telling you about, their deepest problems.
They're just drawn, they know.
Yeah.
That's
So
so cool.
that's been
So,
my experience.
tell me about the way that you get your information, and sort of more in a scoped in point of view, what it's like for you, the healer, to do your work.
Sure. It's really fun and it's not hard. Everyone always asks me, "Oh, doesn't this make you exhausted? Or don't you get so tired doing all this work?" And I'm not giving my energy to heal people. I'm connecting with spirit and allowing spirit to come in and do healing. And I'm identifying with my focus things that need to shift and be released. But I'm not giving of myself to heal people. So it's actually not exhausting at all. And it's really fun and rewarding. So I tune into my client either remotely, whether they're on the phone with me or not, or in person, and I ask their body, I completely surrender to the body. And I ask the body, what do you need from me today? And this is one of the things that makes me different. I'm not following a structure of a tool. I'm not following a list of things that you do. I'm tuning into the body and asking it, what do you need? Do you need something from your childhood? Do you need something in the liver? Do you have a toxin that's bothering you? Is your heart not communicating properly? Like, what is it that your body needs right in this moment? And
So
so,
I want to
number one,
stop you right there. I'm sorry
okay,
to interrupt you, but it's so intriguing and exciting on a consciousness level. So your consciousness is speaking to the consciousness of the person that you're working with. And I mean, I experienced it firsthand. So, um, like, was there something in you when you learned how to do this where you were like, that's what that is, and oh, I get it now? Or was it intuitive? How did you like start, because there's a listening, right, that is expected and needed in order to get the cues from the body. It's like, so the reason I'm breaking this down and wanting to communicate, because really it's like telepathic communication. It's learning how to trust what's coming. And I'm curious, like, how did you go from like the sort of conscious, like, I'm a kid of a medical family, and all of this stuff, to like all of a sudden going to a place where you're communicating in real time with the consciousness of others' bodies?
Yeah, it's pretty stunning. Well, I'll even add to that that I was an engineer.
That's
So
awesome. That
I
is
have,
so
yeah,
awesome.
I have two engineering degrees. I worked in logistics and planning, and was just so far from the intuitive arts that you could imagine. I believe all
That's
of
so
that was
cool.
purposeful, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, something, and I will answer your question. I'm extremely grounded in the physical. Everything about my work is very grounded, even though I am connecting with spirit, tuning into the body. I am here in the physical. And so it was a skill. When I started, I did not have easy flowing intuition. I relied on muscle testing or kinesiology, and had to develop over a series. It actually took me years to start to receive information in a way other than asking for it. So that's significant because my sense of sight is actually not very active at all. I really rely on a sense of knowing and a sense of listening and waiting to receive. And I believe that helps me be more grounded. I've thought
Yeah.
about it a lot, and I think it contributes to me really being in the present moment here on earth, and then tuning into the body and allowing this communication, almost like a side channel, to come in.
Oh, cool. I love that. Even in hypnotherapy as well, a lot more people are sensory oriented than one might think. I think a lot of it's often um misunderstood. I think we are, like, our inner vision is, it's a subtle thing. And I think when we trust what we're getting, our cues, our senses, and our feelings, the imagery starts to grow internally. And it's sort of like an inner cue that starts, but it's an inner vision. It's not like, but imagination is, like with my work, imagination is a key component, and it totally can, um people can develop it, but also it's like, if you're getting the information that you need, that's how you get it. So if you're hearing it clairaudiently, you're hearing or feeling, I mean, what's better than knowing? Right? Just like, got it.
It's
And
true.
that's, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And when I teach, so now I'm teaching this to people, and a very key component of my work, which I learned early on, is I don't want to know more than I need to know. So
Mhm.
the ego can get so hung up in all of these gory, horrible past life stories, right?
Yeah.
And identities. And then, like, I've had clients where it took me 2 or 3 sessions to get them disconnected from the identity that they had latched into with a past life story that someone told them. So
Wow.
we don't want that. We just want to clear the energy. We don't want to create more problems. So, in my intentions for my students and myself, I only want to know the bare amount of, the minimum amount I need to know to
Mhm.
clear the energy that's blocking the body.
Well, that's also a sign of a very confident and talented healer, I think, because there's a level of, I've seen people in their spiritual development, and, I find that a real big one in moving into a more, uh, abundant practice, a more uh a confident level of practicing, is to just, you have to trust what's coming. And we as a society have really sort of taught ourselves that that the intellect knows best, that the heart is foolhardy, and that the gut is like, okay, so we have a little bit, like, what does the gut tell you? What is, I have a gut feeling, I have a hunch, but still there's this, um, it's like not as significant, right? It's like not that wisdom that is coming through has been trained kind of out of us. Um,
And that's,
and
yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think that goes back to those lower chakras. If we're
Yeah.
stuck in those lower chakras, it's hard to get up to the heart and trust. We got to get rid of that fear.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about, my well, and fear is a big one, but the session that we had yesterday and connecting with a fragmented aspect of my inner child. And boy, it was really interesting to just, I don't know, to connect with an aspect of myself that I hadn't yet been able to connect with. But to have someone guiding me is almost like, so in my work, and I'm just sort of comparing it because it's how I perceive things, like I'm guiding the client to notice in their body where it is. You're noticing something that perhaps I couldn't notice. I mean, it's possible that I could, but it's almost like through the lens of another soul, of another perception, of another consciousness, the healing can happen. And that makes me wonder about collective healing, right? Like, so the lens that you were able to view that provided deeper healing for me that I was not perceiving possible, or just I just wasn't aware of, you were aware of it, opened the door for discovery in me. The door swung open, cathartic emotional release, integration. And then, but that's, it's like how, I mean, I guess the reason I'm kind of harping on this is the the idea that we are so intertwined and interconnected and beneficial to each other in our evolution.
I,
um
I
yeah, go
think of
ahead.
it as we need community, right? We need
Yeah.
each other. If we could do everything ourselves, well, we would be pretty boring too, I think.
Yeah, what's fun about that?
Yeah. But no, all joking aside, we have things within us that are too painful or we're afraid to touch. That's really how I view it. Either
Mm,
it's so painful that we just don't want to go there. We just can't go there on our own. Even if our conscious mind wants to go there, we have a block in the way that's resisting.
mm-hmm.
Or it's just so deeply buried that it's just not able to come to our awareness. And I
Yeah,
have had that happen with myself, and it's not for want of trying. It can be our
right.
intention to want that.
Absolutely.
And as you know, there's an alchemy of people. So we get with certain people, we have an alchemy and we come together and we create wonderful healing or different things. But there's also an aspect of timing. You know, we go into all kinds of aspects of like, when does this happen and why does it happen then? And how does it happen under these conditions? But I think of it as things are locked up and I open the door and clear the resistance. And then all of a sudden, everything can be healed.
That is so cool. I love it. And I agree with you. And I love that you brought in the term alchemy, because that's absolutely what I believe it is. It's it's bigger than us, and we're bigger than us. When there's the whole of the individual, but then there's the whole of the collective of humanity. And like there's so much more of the whole that we don't even have access to. I mean, you could kind of think of it in terms of like, are there other worlds? Are there other universes? I personally believe like it would be kind of impossible to imagine what happens here on Earth being in total isolation of the entire multiverse. But what's cool about that is it's kind of like what you're talking about with what's buried or what's not known, is we can know ourselves on a deeper level through one another, you know?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
totally. Totally. And, you know, we're mirrors for each other, right? So we see in
Yes.
others what we need to heal. As practitioners, we receive healing each time we do a session. There's a piece of us that resonates with the healing. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh
we
yeah.
are we are really all one, but we are living a physical body, which is, a little different.
Yeah, it's the perception of being separate. And I think my understanding is that's why we came. We want to have that experience. And that's why it's so convincing. You know, it's like being in the most realistic play, playing a character that you've ever experienced down to the cellular DNA level. It's like, okay, these are the dynamics. You're going to be in this role and it's going to seem so true. And you just, okay, go.
Yeah. It's true. And so we really have to honor, I mean, sometimes we want to be ungrounded. This is something I work with a lot in my practice. Some of us at a deep level don't really want to be here because it's hard, especially if we're evolved souls. We know what it's like in the other realms. It's much easier than the density that we have here, but we are here to be human, and we have to inhabit that physical body and be grounded on the earth to have good health and to fulfill the reason that we're here, to fulfill our mission.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that's really fun. I love to help people identify and connect with their mission, because if they can remember the part of them that has forgotten why they came here, because I get into it with people that I know, like, I can't believe that I would come here to suffer the way that I did. Like, there's just no part of me that would ever sign up for that. And it's kind of delicious to help people connect with that awareness, because it shifts everything. It's like, you know, and back to sort of what we were talking about kind of in the beginning of, like, if you knew, and Abraham Hicks says this, if you knew how badly you wanted to come here, life would be totally different.
Yeah, and how committed you were to the mission that you wanted to fulfill. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully believe that. And most people come to me with physical problems who are in the midst of an awakening. So as we lift off all of these blocks in the body causing physical symptoms, we're actually spiritually opening to greater awareness. So it's a wonderful, I don't know if it's a chicken and egg or just, one
Right.
comes with the other, but it's, I think the physical healing is the impetus to get us to awaken. So it's a wonderful byproduct of healing your physical things in this way, is that you just start being so much more with ease and surrender to your life, and everything just gets so much easier.
Wow, that is so true. I totally agree. And what's funny, what I think is funny, is that term woke has been completely twisted, so that the idea of awakening, and for people who are listening, may get confused that, you know, the cancel culture, the woke community, the ones that are not wanting to be expansive in perception, and saying, you know, we need to have rules, we can't speak to each other, we're responsible for each other's safety, we can't have difficult experiences in life, like, let's, you know, keep it all closed off. And we know historically, for people who have been around for a while, that that point of view will get you what we've already had in the past. We already know where that leads us. You can see story, you know, genocide after genocide, you know, fascist regime, dictatorship after dictatorship, of that kind of thinking. And it's all, I think, perceptually, just maybe people are young and they don't know history or whatever. But what we're talking about is a different kind of awakening. Tell about your perception of awakening. I mean, we've been talking about it basically this whole time, but your perception of awakening and your mission and other people's missions.
Sure. Yeah. So my perception of awakening is losing that false self, the ego that keeps us in stories. So
Mm,
as we let go of the stories of how we view the world is dangerous, men can't be trusted, my body isn't strong enough to overcome illness, I never will have the abundance I want because other people have it, I have to suffer, all of these beliefs about how we view the world
I'm a
reside. And of course,
victim.
I'm a victim, right? It's not
Yeah.
exhaustive. That's just a small list. These
Yeah.
reside in the physical body and in the mind. So they are blocking our ability to manifest what we want and to be able to do what we're here to do, to lead a very fulfilled life where we're helping others and enjoying it ourselves and being in vital health and being able to move with ease through life. So awakening to me is shedding all those stories, being able to be present and in the moment in our lives, being able to live in our physical bodies rather than constantly looking for distraction or being distracted with our phones or electronics or whatever it is that we choose to get distracted by, and
Substances.
enjoying it all.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. Well, so how is your son?
He's well, he's 15 now, and he is a has a very strong immune system. He's a healthy child. He's a wonderful human. Um, he's really, really great. Our journey has been arduous at times, but it has been worth it.
That's so awesome. I'm thinking of having my kids work with you for various reasons. So that's something that we can talk about. So where where are you headed now, Sarah? Where is your mission leading you?
So, my immediate mission is to really bring this amazing healing where we surrender to the body and let it tell us what it needs and move energy with the help of spirit. Like, that is my energy medicine and spiritual healing. I'm teaching that. That's my immediate focus. But my secondary focus is really to become a spokesperson for bringing this type of healing into our medical system. So I would love to see a time where you go to the doctor for a physical issue and the doctor has knowledge of, let's also help you work with this therapy that's going to help relieve stress and decrease your, calm down your nervous system and help set your body up for even better physical healing. Like I would love to visualize that time and play a role in helping set that up.
I love it. I mean, it's definitely starting to happen. I get referrals from integrative physicians and health coaches, people who are kind of, well, definitely doctors, not very many, but it's starting to happen on a level where it's not so frightening to the establishment, because there's, the way I see it, and I would assume you feel this way too, it is a lucrative prospect to join forces and to build on the wellness model. Like, I totally reject the idea that uh, um, a fix it model of symptom fixing or surgically removing what isn't serving. I totally reject that it has to be that one way and that's the only lucrative possibility. I mean, it just feels so abundant, so much more abundant to have a society, to have a world of wellness. Like, what could that mean for humanity, to have a society that is well? You wouldn't need to, I mean, first of all, wellness is a multi-billion-dollar industry on its own. Like, if that became more integrated, that could be amazing. I don't see how that would be harmful to the system. It could just pivot and be more inclusive. It doesn't have to be hard, or it doesn't have to completely collapse, I guess. I think, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we have to make small changes because there are some very powerful interests at play here. I mean, the medical
Sure.
industry and the pharmaceutical industry are very large industries. But if we focus on what we can control, we have research that's showing that childhood adverse events affect the physical health of people.
Sure.
There's discussion in common culture that childhood trauma affects your physical health. People know very well that stress levels affect your, we just found a statistic, 75 to 90% of doctor visits are, the problem is rooted in stress.
Wow.
So this awareness is out
That's
there
huge.
and
Yeah.
it's being talked about. Even the power of positive visualization,
Oh, for sure.
that's even being talked about in collective culture. So we have lots of opportunity to leverage the work that others have done
Mhm.
to really start bringing some tools. And we can't compete with the unwellness industry, but we can start changing by capturing the people who really are interested in stepping into wellness rather than going down that health rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right, and I agree with you that small steps are needed, and I do believe that younger generations don't see the distinctions as profoundly. And I've even talked to physicians who are training. I don't have the names of the institutions off the top of my head that are doing more integrative practices. I know osteopaths do more of that. But I do believe that there's going to be a critical mass that shifts things. Because personally, I just think that there's so much money. Money is the main interest, right, of these businesses. Um, and having people well is a far more lucrative prospect than having people unwell.
It is, especially if you're that person. So
Yeah. Well, for
just, yeah,
sure. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and I think you could create a whole cultural point of view that nourishes that, and how beautiful. I mean, that sounds utopian. We'll always have struggle. We'll always have struggle as humanity. I mean, like, even when a kid is playing and they fall and they scrape their knee, there's going to be a struggle in that moment, and then there's an experience to be learned in that happening. um, but I think to have an environment where there's more embracing of just the general uh, interconnectedness of all of us. And there's some cool research going on. The Center for Noetic Sciences. I don't know if you're familiar. There is research going on um, in the world, focusing on consciousness and healing. And um, we know that meditation has an effect on violence globally, that the more people that meditate, there's an effect on consciousness. We know that the Center for Noetic Sciences, and Dean Radin is like the head scientist. He does a lot of stuff around that. Rupert Sheldrake, who is out of Cambridge. Have you heard of him?
yes, I have.
Yeah, I love him. So there is this evidentiary um, stuff going on, and
Yes.
I know there are plenty of people who are like, yeah, but that, like, somehow I've talked to people and they're like, they're not willing to entertain that that's actually true evidence. Do you know what I
Of
mean?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just stuck. Yeah, I do know. And I know some of those people.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Matt Kahn talks about three waves of ascension, like three waves of awakening. We've got the
Mm,
leaders, we've got the middle folks that are just starting to wake up now, and then we've got the laggers that are, coming along some more slowly. So we just have to think about it that way. Everyone isn't going to instantly wake up together, and there are going to be people that they have to hear it 5 or 6 or 7 times before they're like, okay, well, maybe that actually could be true.
yeah. Yeah. I agree. Do you feel like there are people who are here that is just not a part of their mission, that maybe they aren't here necessarily to awaken?
I think that's a very good point. I think, yeah, sure, because we have, in my opinion, we have low frequency events that happen, such as terrorist attacks and war, in order for people to spiritually experience something and learn from it. so from what I've been taught, as soon as we don't need those experiences, they will go away. As
Mm,
soon as there are people that don't need to experience power shifts and destruction and violence, we won't
right.
have those here. So I think we could say the same. And those events play an instrumental role in helping the rest of us release fear. If we didn't have those, we wouldn't work through some of our fears.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely food for thought, because I mean, what if a person is that their mission, and I haven't actually had anyone sit in my recliner at work telling me that their mission is to be a villain in this performance. I doubt that they would be coming in
I
to
do
sit in
too.
my chair.
Yeah, I do
No, but
too.
it's interesting to contemplate. And when my father passed, and I had mentioned this yesterday, he came through when I was training to become a hypnotherapist back a decade ago. And I was a demo during our training, and we were being taught how to do past life regression. And he literally just, his energy downloaded and showed me. It was basically like sticking my finger in a light socket and just getting a full download of why his soul chose to leave at 60 from an illness. um Super emotional and powerful. And you when you have that kind of connection and awareness that drops in, like, we were talking about, how do you know, how do you trust, it's undeniable when it's that powerful. I mean, they had to clear the room because I was basically like convulsing, just going through so much of a download that I was just like, crying, weeping. Um, but the
And
cool,
I
yeah,
help my clients. One of the most profound things that I have questioned myself is, what if the most difficult person in your life is there just for you?
I
What
kind
if?
of
What
believe
if?
that. I believe that. I
I
do.
totally believe it.
Yeah.
I totally believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if they were there just so you could learn what you needed to learn and rise above it so that you could then go and help others?
That
That's
would
exactly what
probably,
we're saying.
yeah. And that would probably mean that they are beloved on a soul level,
Absolutely.
you know, which is sort of crazy to consider. Um, and I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I know that so and so an a-hole or whatever. They are definitely not a part of my soul connection. Excuse me. And it's not my job or your job to convince anyone of what we're saying. you know it's really about other points of view to explore this consciousness. I mean, I'm always growing, always learning, having more insight, and that's part of the fun, right?
For sure. Absolutely. Yes. We always learn every day. And I think if we stay open in that way, it keeps us relevant, and it keeps us growing and learning and able to bring through even more great healing for people.
So true. So what happens next? Is the training component a part of you, and this bigger vision of connecting the doctors and the alternative healing practitioners?
It could be. It wasn't directly, but my work is very grounded, and we're working with the organs and the hormones and the physical body, and then the emotions and beliefs. It's actually fairly digestible for medical practitioners,
Right.
and it would be easy to create healing that could be used in that way, and it would be more digestible versus Reiki, where it's more generalized and the body's leveraging that healing, but it's not as focused and the person doesn't quite understand what's happening. And in this energy medicine, we're really focused on physical issues. So it does have the potential, but obviously it needs to be used by someone who is aware of their connection with spirit and their intuition, and
Yeah.
They're using and leveraging that connection. The client doesn't have to be aware of any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think, just sort of projecting outward, so if everyone had access to what I'm seeing is like a team, right? A team of practitioners that are showing them how to have wellness. The byproduct of that sort of exponentially radiating outward is wellness for humanity, and then also an awareness within humanity that they have those same capabilities, that that team that they've worked with, that medical team, like ultimately, like we could advance to the point where we're doing this for ourselves, where we're managing our, what I like to refer to as our inner technology, for optimization. I don't see, I mean, just sort of feeling into that, that feels like 100 years from now, perhaps, or more. But the potential is really exciting because that's what I like. I like projecting into the future of like, if we do this, then we start getting to some more interesting stuff, because this old war crap is so not interesting to me. It's so like, you know, eons ago. So I think that's part of what my mission is too, is to just go like, come on, you guys, let's do this now,
Yeah, yeah. And it's happening. I mean, I always get just, it amuses me so much to listen to music lyrics and watch cartoons, and they're all talking about energy. They're all talking about other worlds. It's really, really all around us. So I think we've got so much potential right now to make big change.
That's awesome. So we just have a minute left to finish this up. What would you like to talk about before we close up?
Well, I would love to make an offer to your guests. I have a free welcome transformation session on my website that, if you feel like your body's just, you want change, but you feel a resistance within you, that something's just holding you back, this is an opportunity to just listen to a 10-minute energy healing session. The energy comes through and it can help release some blocks.
That's awesome. So, also let your clients that are like, "Ooh, I have to work with Sarah," let them know how to get in touch with you. And I'll also put that in the description box below on this video when I post it.
So the best way to get in touch with me is at rayzenenergy.com. You can also find me on Instagram at rayzenenergy, and Facebook, same thing, Rayzen Energy.
Is there a
And the
hyphen in between Ray and Zen?
Nope, RayZenenergy.com, all one word.
Okay, excellent. Very cool, Sarah. Well, I love talking with you. I'd love to have you on the show again and just hear how things are evolving. I'm energizing that vision for you of bringing the Western medicine model and the alternative energy medicine and all of the auxiliary modalities into sync with one another. That's a really cool vision. Anybody who's listening to this, if you have a vision that connects with that, spend some time visualizing it, spend some time energizing that. Your visualization has an impact on how the world unfolds, and you have power beyond your imagination. So thank you all for joining us today. And thank you so much, Sarah. Sarah Lascano, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Nora. It's been a pleasure.
It sure has. Thanks. I love it. All right.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
you too.